The question we all dread: will my avoidant ex reach out? Yes, indeed, that is precisely the title of our gathering here today. It's a matter that tugs at heartstrings, stirs curiosity, and can spark a storm of self-doubt all at once. Now, settle in, dear listener, for we have a vast landscape to traverse, one marked by the psychological intricacies of the avoidant ex, the subtle art of detachment, and the delicate dance between fear and longing. I recall once strolling through an old cathedral courtyard on a brisk, moonlit evening, hushed, solemn, and mysterious. The entire atmosphere reminded me of the intricacies of human relationships, especially when they have come to an end. You see, endings rarely feel final until much later, and for those with avoidant tendencies, the finality can loom large, heavy, and intimidating. The chord of separation, in such personalities, resonates with a peculiar blend of trauma and vulnerability, two experiences they fear more than any midnight specter. Why would an avoidant ex, who values independence above all else, welcome the specter of unresolved feelings into their carefully guarded solitude? That question, of course, is the central puzzle of will my avoidant ex reach out? As we proceed, let us not be led astray by romantic illusions or false promises of instant reunions. Instead, let us undertake a sober examination of how the avoidant mind ticks, why it seeks distance, and whether there exists any method, subtle or overt, that might prompt them to reach out. In so doing, let us reveal the core facets of the avoidant ex's thought patterns: a longing for independence, a stubborn resistance to perceived engulfment, a preference for a lonely peace over a conflicted togetherness, and, most intriguingly, a curious sense of nostalgia that may sprout when their former partner seems truly out of reach. Imagine, if you will, the avoidant ex seated in a quiet library, dust motes swirling gently in a shaft of afternoon light. They hold a thick tome of memories, sifting through recollections of the relationship. Each page is filled with laughter, arguments, late-night confessions, and moments of intimacy that once felt so natural. Yet in the midst of this reflection, our avoidant friend slams the book shut the moment it threatens to unearth their discomfort or sense of being trapped. Independence, in their eyes, is a fortress, not to be breached by fleeting emotional impulses. Often, this fortress is erected higher and stronger once a breakup transpires. Instead of glimpsing over the walls, they'd rather curl up within the safety of those barriers, away from the triggers that bring them face to face with unresolved feelings. But let us not brand the avoidant as a villain in our tale. Very often, this defensive posture comes from deep wounds. Some avoidant individuals have grown up in environments where showing too much need earned them scorn or indifference. Others have simply come to feel that true contentment can only be found in solitude or minimal contact. Reaching out to an ex threatens that structure, stirring long-dormant anxieties of entrapment or disappointment. As a result, they remain silent. It's no wonder that many of you might be disheartened upon hearing that, statistically speaking, a majority of avoidant exes will not make the first move. In fact, some thorough digging into polls conducted in dedicated relationship support spaces reveals that over half of exes in no contact, particularly those believed to be dismissive avoidants, remain steadfastly mute. They might yearn in private, but outwardly, they project an air of calm, self-assurance, and unwavering independence. The result? The partner left behind looks on in bewilderment, wondering if all those shared experiences suddenly mean nothing at all. There is, however, more nuance to be unearthed. An avoidant isn't altogether unfeeling or immune to memory's embrace. They can miss someone deeply once they believe that person is truly gone. The weight of solitude, though familiar, occasionally grows heavier than expected, introducing a pang of loss that creeps into the stillness of their nights. This pang doesn't vanish, but rather ferments into nostalgia. Strangely enough, though they fear entrapment, they are also vulnerable to the tender pang of what was. Let me share a brief anecdote from a dear acquaintance of mine. He was quite the embodiment of the avoidant spirit, charming yet distant, cordial yet impenetrable. After his breakup, he swore off romance, certain it complicated life with unneeded burdens. For 6 months, he stayed away from phone calls, messages, or any recollection of his past relationship. But then one day, unbidden and unannounced, he recalled a shared joke he'd had with his ex, and the memory unlocked a tapestry of reminiscent warmth. A mere day later, he found himself composing a letter. Yes, an old-fashioned letter, to that ex, acknowledging that in the hush of solitude, he'd begun to miss her. It was nearly a year after the breakup. The impetus wasn't logic or a grand revelation. It was the simple yet potent churn of nostalgia, arriving precisely when he believed she had moved on, and he was safe from her expectations. Herein lies one of the subtle truths. To awaken an avoidance desire to reconnect, one must resist chasing them with declarations of love. Instead, one must show, through actions and demeanor, that one's life continues. Demonstrate growth, serenity, and genuine acceptance of the new status quo. Nothing rattles the avoidant mindset like the realization that they might lose a cherished memory forever. Ironically, this also grants them the security they require to venture out from behind their walls. It's as if, by seeing your independence, they reaffirm their own, and thus it's no longer threatening to speak with you. Still, let us pause and reflect upon that lonely frontier in which avoidants often prefer to reside. They may sink into stubbornness, choosing isolation over the vulnerability that contact might demand. Many times they would rather embrace nights of quiet introspection than face the tumult of confrontation or apology. This is not a failure of character, necessarily, but a byproduct of how they cope with fear. Fear of being smothered, fear of being in the wrong, fear of losing themselves in the swirl of another person's emotional orbit. Now, if you're determined to initiate contact, keep in mind that the nostalgia window for an avoidant can be quite large. For some, it may arrive within a few months. For others, it may take years. The pace matches the layers of defense they must peel away and the depth of your bond. If your relationship was intense and long, it might require a more extended stretch of absence before they begin to yearn for the warmth of what once was. A wise colleague once likened it to the turning of the seasons. After a harsh winter, spring arrives slowly, almost imperceptibly. Yet day by day, the frost recedes and blossoms appear. It is no swift unveiling, but a gentle, organic reawakening. Should you attempt to rush the season, you only stand in defiance of nature's carefully timed progress. Hence, the significance of discipline. Are you prepared to offer them the very space they crave? Can you resist the urge to bombard them with messages, or check their social media every hour, or obsess over hypothetical outcomes? Are you willing to allow yourself to heal and grow, independent of their involvement? Only then does the possibility arise for them to glance back your way, seeing you, yes, but not with obligations or demands, rather with curiosity and renewed admiration. And if they do not reach out, then the story might simply be that you have both grown in separate directions, that time has conferred a gentler resolution upon the wounds that once ached. The purpose in all of this is not just reuniting with an ex, but reuniting with yourself, finding your own strength, your own sense of clarity. Because once you live a fuller, richer life that isn't tethered to someone else's validation, you light a lamp that can guide both you and your ex out of the darkness of past conflicts and into something more peaceful, whether shared or apart. So as we wind our way through this puzzle of avoidant attachment, hold fast to one conclusion. Any contact from an avoidant ex will not be born of pressure or obligation. It will grow from a profound sense of genuine nostalgia and safety. By focusing on your own journey, you create the space in which those embers of curiosity might spark. If they do, well, perhaps you'll both share a warm exchange of words. If they do not, you'll still stand on a foundation far more secure than that which you had at the time of the breakup. All in all, the question of will my avoidant ex reach out carries no guaranteed answer. Life rarely grants certainties, especially in the tumultuous realm of the heart. But armed with understanding of their defensiveness, their craving for independence, their reluctant vulnerability, and that curious mechanism of nostalgia, you are poised to navigate this terrain with wisdom. And you, dear listener, deserve no less than the tranquility of peace that arises from self-discovery. May this knowledge serve as your companion, a steadying hand guiding you through your own cathedral courtyard of memories, echoes, and possibilities yet to unfold.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.